Hey everyone, how's it going? Welcome to another episode of the KDigitals podcast where we dive into artists, their origin, their style, and their process. Joining me today is Mstah Freeze, based here in San Diego. How you doing today, man?
I'm doing good. Thanks for having me.
Of course. No, thanks for joining me. San Diego's California is pretty rainy right now, so I'm assuming you're indoors too.
Yeah. But it didn't stop nobody from hanging out yesterday. That was probably the worst it looked in like all year. I mean, even
Hmm.
in 2022, but didn't stop nobody from doing stuff. Because I
Hmm.
was out and about. I had a photo shoot yesterday, and I also went to like some football viewing parties because it was NFL playoffs, and
Hmm.
there was still a lot of people out in the bars, and so yeah, rain's not stopping nobody.
Yeah, on New Year's was pretty bad, and I
Oh
went out
yeah,
to
I
go
remember that.
pick up somebody, and there
Yeah.
people are out, and it was
Hmm.
raining all night. So people went out like, "Oh, it's gonna rain, it won't stop me." But it's like, man,
Hmm.
it's
Hmm.
California.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, cool, man. Thanks for joining me today. For every podcast, I like to kick it off by asking the guests to define themselves as an artist. Like I said, just look at your stuff. It's easily assume photographer, but do you see yourself that way? Do you see yourself a different way?
Yeah. So like that's why I'm like Mr. Freeze. And I think that's like the definition of like who I am as an artist,
Hmm.
because that kind of derived from my love of superheroes. So that's like my superpower. And and that's the origin story of like Mr. Freeze, because I felt like every artist has a gift. Every artist has talent. And I just decided to call those gifts superpowers. So
Hmm.
if I was going to be a superhero, I would be called Mr. Freeze. And freezing time is my superpower.
Hmm.
So um and it just allowed to be my brand of, of forcing people to, as I introduce myself, I say I'm
Hmm.
Freeze, and my Instagram is Mr. Freeze. And then they don't, it's usually the first thing they'll think is, what is that? They don't know if I'm a photographer or not. And
Hmm.
every time before that, when I say I'm a photographer, they usually say, oh, I'm interested in maybe doing like a family shoot, but I don't want to do a family shoot.
Yeah.
So that really just, like, I'm really happy when I say like, yeah, hey, I'm Freeze, and they're like, hey, what is that? And then I just give them a spiel of about how I love to take photos and I freeze time.
Hmm.
So yeah, that's where it comes from, and that's really how I define myself as like a superhero.
Yeah. So then, talk about like not doing family shoots. What do you like to shoot, or what are your ideal clients?
Um, I don't really do a lot of clients, but I just like to collaborate
Hmm.
with people who are into fashion. As I'm into fashion, so obviously I gravitate towards fashion photography.
Hmm.
But I also like to, take portraits of just people in general, whether it's my friends or my family.
Hmm.
So you can say you can box me in as, portrait photographer,
Hmm.
fashion editorial. But I also love street. So basically, I just like doing mostly portraits. Um, and I just love that reaction when I when they see their picture, when the person sees their picture, especially with Polaroids and film. Like, well, mostly for Polaroids, when they can actually see right away after I take their photo,
Hmm.
they can um, uh, tangibly hold their portrait, and then didn't they see something that they didn't expect, but
Hmm.
they're seeing a better version of themselves, which already exists. So that
Mm.
like that little dance, that little interaction is just something uh, that excites me, and I feel like seeing a person that I take pictures with is like it brings them joy, and I get a kick
Hmm.
out of that every time, especially with my family who doesn't think they're models and
Hmm.
they're always self-conscious of what they look like. But if I know how to manipulate the light, if I know how to use natural light or how to use the shadows, I feel like I have the confidence to present themselves as that they could be like excited to show people they could be in a magazine for themselves. So
Mhm.
yeah, you could group me into like portrait photography, but I mean, there's another part of me that also loves street photography, just because I
Mhm.
have the uh full freedom to create. I have no boundaries amongst like clients, and that's the
Mhm.
other aspect that I love because I just love doing what I want to do, and I want what people want are trying to box me in and trying to say, hey, I want to do a shoot that may have this theme, and I'm like, hey, I want to only do my style. If you don't want to do it, then you probably have to talk to somebody else who's probably better than me at that.
Mhm.
Uh, 'cause- and that's why I like to be called Freeze and not say, "Hey, I'm a photographer," because I don't want to be hired to do a job that I don't want to do. I love doing stuff that I
Mm.
like.
Yeah. Yeah, there's definitely a high, right, when it comes to like taking pictures of people that one, even if they're like a experienced person in front of the camera, it's
Mm.
still fun. But when someone that's like shy, we're like, oh, if we get one photo, I guess, and like you take one shot, like, oh my God, okay, let's do it again. Like I
Yeah,
think
yeah,
I get that. And I seen on your YouTube, like yeah, like, cause
mhm,
I have a DSLR, so when you do it, just click the button and hey, but yours is
mhm,
like take the shot, the film comes out, you
yeah,
peel it back. Like there's more
yeah.
suspense to it, right?
That's part of why I keep shooting in Polaroid. I love that medium. And I think we all have expectations with Polaroid, especially growing up in the 80s, 90s.
Hmm.
And I think the people who grew up in the 90s already have this image of what a Polaroid should look like. They see just a normal automatic camera, and then it just takes a harsh flash, and basically that's all you get. And so I take it to the fashion
Mm.
editorial style, and when they see that Polaroid, they're like, "I've never seen a Polaroid like that." And um, I think that that perspective of not expecting what you think it's going to look like,
Hmm.
that's like the best. And that's why I think, yeah, the suspense kind of I don't know, it just and it's scary, and there's I think that's part of it, the failures of it too, because not every Polaroid's good, because light works differently in Polaroids, and that's like another technical aspect. But sometimes when it develops, and or if I had to peel it for pill apart film, it's never right. And usually it's usually in the beginning stages. And once we figure out the perfect lighting, and then we just go off. And that's the stuff that I usually show. Um, and yeah, so it is suspenseful because it may not turn out good. But that's the
Hmm.
best part. I and even models understand. They're like, because every time if it goes wrong, I'd be like, hey, it's film.
Hmm.
That's part of it, the failure of it.
Mm. Do you have like a
Mhm,
kind
yeah.
of a scapegoat
Mhm.
if you need it?
I would say, yeah, that's
What?
part of it. And you know what? We're gonna trust it. And I'm like, I'm very confident we're gonna get it the next time. And then I
Mm.
learned from what the Polaroid is telling me, like, oh shoot, I think this is too dark on the right side. So I probably have to add some more light on this side. Um, because I didn't think the chemicals in the Polaroid will yeah, that's part of it.
Mm.
The chemistry of the Polaroids is the way that light interacts is completely different than even negative film and DSLRs. So there's another science to the amount of stops you have to add as far as you go back, and also how much light you have to add if you got to go close. It's completely different
Hmm.
mentality. So there's a lot of failures in Polaroid portraits, but when you get it right, that's the excitement of the subject is just so rewarding.
Hmm. How damn, the more you talk, the more questions I get. I'm trying to figure out which one to start with first. But the one
Yeah,
thing I
let's
was
go.
like, because I do understand, like, you take the shot, okay, no, the film says this, the reporter says this, light, like you have to adjust. That's what you do when you shoot. But what is like your pacing like? Because when I'm shooting my DSLR, I can shoot 10 shots and it problem solve pretty fast, but you're wasting film just trying to figure out.
Mhm. Great question. Yeah, it's super slow. I mean, all film photographers shoot slower, but Polaroid's even slower because as soon as you click the shutter, so, especially for a SX-70, the Polaroid will like zip out.
Mhm.
That's 1 second, and then you got to put it down. So you're not just firing off,
Yeah.
tick 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 tick. So basically, the pace is slow, but here's a real world example. Is like, all right, let's take a photo. All the lights perfect. I know how I set it up. And then I bring the camera and I just start focusing. And then I'll be like, all right, I'm focusing. All right, let's try to do this, try to do that. And then I'm like, I'm also trying to like say, hey, tell me about um, I don't know, some just trying to spark conversation as well I'm focusing. So right
Mhm.
there, 10 seconds already passed. And then I see them, okay, do this to your hands. All right, now look my head. All right, maybe direct your chin this way. I haven't took the picture yet. And then suddenly, like, all right, there it is, perfect. Snap, zip, put it around. All right, let's do another shot. So from right there, it's usually about like
Mm.
40 seconds per shot, 40 to a
Yeah.
minute.
So like,
So
how do
it's slow,
you?
but
Oh, go ahead.
it's
No, go ahead.
that's the process. Like
Yeah.
I think I think it opens up another world for models because they kind of as soon as they know what they're getting themselves into, they don't care how long you take because they're
Mm.
gonna see the results eventually. Like
Yeah.
fill apart is about a minute, Instax is about a minute. Um, but SX-70 film, 600 Polaroid film, that takes about like 15 to 20. So if they know what they're getting themselves into, then that's okay. But
Mhm.
that's just how it Polaroid works.
So how does like that experience different from when you're shooting like buildings, or how does your process change?
Yeah. So Polaroids is money. So I
Yeah.
have to figure out like what kind of things I'm going to shoot as an investment. So I don't really shoot for Polaroids. I don't shoot street. I don't shoot buildings. I focus mainly Polaroids just for portraits. And then
Mm.
just film photography, I'll do street and landscapes. And
Oh,
I don't really
okay.
do landscapes, but I mean, if it's a scene, I'll shoot it. I usually
Yeah.
just shoot film. But as far as like Polaroid, and it needs to look retro. It needs to be worth something to take a picture. So I hardly do
Yeah.
it. Yeah. So I don't even
Um.
know that process. But there's a guy named uh into the Polaroid. I forgot his name. But yeah, he does a lot of signage, neon signs, and
Mm.
dude uh Ben, who is on in the instant, he does everything too. Landscapes, portraits. Um so yeah, if you guys need to tap into like how to do more Polaroids, they're good resources. But I'm just strictly portraits for Polaroids.
Yeah. It does sound like you're like, yeah. I didn't think like, oh, film versus Polaroid. You keep saying that, but when because I don't
Yeah,
do, I'm so used to like, oh, those are the same thing, but they're
yeah.
not. Yeah.
Hmm.
Um. Rookie question.
Yeah.
What how come you can't shoot on expired film? Like what is that? What does it mean when it's expired? Or like what does it do for someone that doesn't know film?
I think expired film is a risk. You can shoot expired film if you want. If you want a grimier look and a very experimental, embrace it. Just expect failure. And sometimes when a color shift in your portrait, um, even for Polaroids, it's part of the character of the photo.
Hmm.
So if you intend to think that it's going to be completely different, so if it's going to be a little more edgier, a little more grungy, then I'm going to lean because and the color shifts with expired film, then I'm going to lean into that where I'm probably might do something that's very because I love punk rock and I love like glam rock as far as like and band photos. Like I kind of study that when I pose people, especially with
Mm,
families. But I kind of lean into uh kind of lead into the colors of just embrace some of the imperfections that expired film can do, and maybe I'll do like an abstract look and slow the shutter. So if you're going to be experimental, like full on tackle that, head first, and don't like expect something like super clean. I think it's
mm,
very experimental. So even I do a lot of experimental work with something called Lomochrome purple, and that's not Polaroid. That's just 35 millimeter film,
mhm,
also medium format. But I've been doing a lot of Lomochrome purple, which kind of shifts everything to uh, like a lot of the greens to like really dark blues and
mm,
some of the yellows to magenta. And
yeah.
I'm not gonna if I'm gonna do a portrait, then I'm gonna embrace that psychedelic type look. So I'm gonna lean into like a Jimi Hendrix inspired, and then you mix that with like slow shutter, and then you just get this time trip for this weird film stock.
Mhm,
So that's my perspective of expired film. Like you can, if you want to, just expect failure and also
mhm,
expect something that's really rewarding, and embrace the characteristics of some of the flaws of expired film.
mhm. Yeah, for sure, man. Yeah, because I think the thing with it is like, listen, I shoot digital, but I know there's part of me that wants to do like I have a I don't remember grab it real quick. Like probably like a
Yeah.
very beginner style, but like one of these that I use
Hmm.
like
Yeah.
occasionally. But then like I
Yeah.
see you have like a Godox trigger on it. I'm like, okay, cool. There's
Yeah.
clearly more to it than just this,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
I don't even know where to start.
Yeah.
Uh, it's
I did
cool to
start
learn
out
more.
with that, and so that kind of made me understand, especially with limited buttons, limited functions with those types of cameras. And for people who are just listening to the audio only, you brought in Instax camera, Instax
Mhm.
Mini. And so even with those limited functions, like how can you create creative uh, Polar Instax photos? Because
Mhm.
those are Instax. Um, and that's the beauty of it. And that's what kind of opens up your brain. If you limit yourself, it can only frustrate you so much because you don't have any control.
Mhm.
But how do you use what you're limited to innovate? So I use your camera, one of those Instax Mini cameras, and
Yeah.
whenever I see like a strip of light, I don't meter it, but I make sure I spot meter. Like usually the camera is center weighted like metering. So I usually there's a on the camera there's usually like a what's it called? I don't know, exposure compensation. They have like
Yeah.
pictures.
Just like little dial.
Yeah,
Little.
the
I don't know if
little
you could see it. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So I underexpose it, and usually there's like this really cool, dramatic photo that usually comes out if you do it right. And so I kind of learned that, and then
Mm.
and then I also learned just using that camera. You have such a small frame, and you have to understand because you're not looking through the lens. You're just looking at this, you know, through a little plastic
Mm.
composition
Yeah.
that's they to emulate rangefinder, but you kind of have to understand where to position your camera. So sometimes you have to tilt it down to cover the headspace because usually when you take a picture, there's a lot of headspace if you focus on the center. So I usually tilt it down and usually crop the head ever so slightly, and then I get because hey, I always tell Polaroid Instax that's money. So if you're not using all that space for your photos, then you're just throwing away money. So I usually like to you know compose and use as much of the negative or the photo itself. So these are the kind of things that
Mm,
frustrated me with the limitations of the Instax photo or camera,
mhm,
and that built more curiosity on how to shoot. So if I can
mhm,
shoot with an Insta camera and make amazing photos, just imagine what I can do when I have a camera that has all the capabilities
mm,
of of like especially for the Mint SLR um, 670X, which allows
mhm,
me to trigger flash.
mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what was the trip because I was looking at like your Instagram and like you have like the behind the scenes videos and like just seeing the Godox trigger, like, oh, so that's how he does it. I was wondering
Hmm.
like how you got the studio light. Like, do you just press it? I don't know. But
Yeah.
I just I guess it's not too much of a leap of imagination to know you can do that. Just I'd never seen it done before. So it's just so like, oh, light bulb.
And I'm telling you, you can. I seen your work, and you can definitely use. Um, you can easily transition
Hmm.
to a Polaroid studio shoot because I've seen the basics that and the foundations that you do through your photography.
Hmm.
Uh, it's just a matter of like, all right, adding a stoplight or, you know, losing or taking away a stoplight,
Hmm.
how depending on how far you are or how close you are.
Hmm.
That's the part of practicing. But it's an easy transition from digital to Polaroids if you do stroke photography.
Hmm.
Because there's a lot of people who think that because I don't really show. I don't have like a person who records for me, so it's only rare
Yeah.
times that. So before that, before a person who does like behind the scenes for me, people actually thought, "Oh, is that a printer? Did you take a digital picture and print it out?"
Hmm.
Uh, so that was the case, before that, before people saw some behind the scenes. But if you take those foundational compositions and tips and how to do strobe photography, it's pretty much the same thing.
Hmm.
You just don't see it through your LCD screen or your optical lens.
Yeah, that's so yeah, it's because it's like you said, it's the same realistically in some way, but
It
it feels
is.
so I don't know, maybe like going like you're driving a mag versus like a manual car. And it's like
Mhm.
it's still a car, but I don't want to mess
Yeah,
it up.
it is
Yeah.
more rewarding because you just don't know what it looks like. So it really taught me how to see without using my eyes. So it forced me to use the light meter when I
Mm,
shoot film or Polaroids, to read the light with my light meter and not try to let a digital camera, tell me how I should look at my photo. So,
mm,
so some of the results, I study my results and I try to remember how I meter or how I stack my lights or set up like this way. I have it memorized for the next shoot, and that preps me to like I don't as soon as I set everything up, I don't need to check it with let's see how it may look like on a digital camera. I don't have to do that no more. And I think that's the beauty of shooting something like Polaroid or film, that whatever you don't see, you have full confidence that it's gonna turn out um, exactly how you think it's gonna be.
interesting.
Yeah, it
Yeah,
prepped me.
cause yeah, cause like I guess it's more of a limitation the fact I'm using DSLR, but it's like I like looking through the viewfinder. Like I like to really frame a
Yeah,
shot and analyze and really think just by looking without taking shots. But
I do
like
too.
with like mirrorless now, right? Everyone's using the screen. So the whole
Yeah,
camera's like this. And it's like,
yeah,
but why you're supposed to look at the photo. Like it just feels so different. But to you it's like
yeah,
you don't even get that instant reward. You have to kind of
yeah,
know.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll choose to shoot a DSLR over a mirrorless just because I like looking at the optical viewfinder.
Hmm.
Because I don't I want to envision how the shadows may look like just from my knowledge of and history of shooting. I want to I want to imagine that in my head,
Hmm.
and then if it matches what I see in my head, then I'm doing it my way and not what the camera is telling me.
Mm.
And I think that I think a lot of people should embrace trying to use your imagination and how you shoot, because sometimes you might like a dramatic photo over something that's a little more high key,
Mhm.
and it emotes different emotions. And I rather be surprised on how the photo will look, because if over a mirrorless camera, I I'll set my settings to make it darker, and then I see it'll show you exactly what photo you're going to take.
Yeah.
But I love trying to figure out how to make that photo when it comes out on the back of the live viewfinder,
Mhm.
and that's the closest thing I'll get to film, is looking
Yeah.
through optical viewfinder and then looking through the live view.
Mhm.
So that's just like a little preference, and the experience is different. But obviously we're all just taking photos,
Yeah.
but it triggers my mind differently than other cameras. And I think that's why I think gear does matter sometimes, because if it does something different to your brain, I think you should lean on that.
Mhm. There's a photographer in Miami or Florida. He goes by Orangutan, Mike Tang, and
Yeah,
I interviewed him some time back, and I asked him like, "Oh, what like gear do you use and all that? What do you think mirrorless versus film versus?" He uses everything, and he
yeah,
said he got to a point where he stopped using mirrorless cameras
really.
because they were so good, and the idea was 'cause so, like, his philosophy is, we're not taking photos, we're having an experience. We're here to hang out and bond and get to know each other, and that's his, like, how he focuses his process, and as we're but then we're gonna have photos to look at.
Mm-hmm.
But he felt like when he used the mirrorless camera, he got the shots he wanted right away,
Hmm.
and it kinda took the magic out of the shoot because you're like, "Okay, we're done." There's not
Yeah,
really much to do, but it's like the fact that you're problem solving together and moving stuff, like, it gets people excited, it feels like they're, like, painting
yeah,
together, and so he had to kinda
yeah.
pull back a bit and switch out, like, his normal routine for the
Huh.
sake of keeping the problem solving experience together involved versus like, "Oh, I know the settings, put the light here, boom,
I
5 minutes
love
in the
it.
shoot, we're done." Yeah,
I
and that stuck with me.
100% agree. It's a different experience, and if it triggers you to work, I think you should, lean on that
Mhm,
more. So yeah, I 100% agree with that.
mhm. Um, it's like I keep bringing it up, like, at some point, I wanna kinda experiment more with, like, Polaroid film, but,
Mhm,
uh, it's like, I don't know where to start gear-wise. The idea is, like, when I look up cameras, like, on OfferUp or Craigslist, it's always, like,
mhm,
as is or don't know if it works, come try it out, but it's like, I don't how do I know if it works? Like, I don't wanna buy it for 150 bucks and realize, like,
mhm.
it's a dud.
$150. I think that's a safe a safe route. Anything over 200s, I would kind of lean towards um tested, right?
Okay.
Uh, but if it's anything under like 150 or 100, it's a good gamble. Uh, but yeah, that's part of it, because they don't technically make uh well, they do make modern Polaroid cameras, so there's that option too. But you're also
Mhm,
gonna pay something over $100. Um, but if you want the SX-70, the one that's almost like folds down and then you can lift it up, that's very trendy. So that's why and to be honest, I think that's one of the best engineered cameras of all time, despite just being a Polaroid. Just the design alone is amazing,
mhm,
and I can understand why on eBay it's more expensive. So it's going to be a risk
mhm,
if you're going to buy an SX-70 camera. So it's it will forever always be a gamble every time you buy. And um, but I usually, even if it's a lower price, I usually take that gamble. I'm willing to waste $60 on a cheap Polaroid, and like, okay, If it doesn't work, it doesn't work. But honestly, I don't really buy used Polaroids, so I never venture off. So I'm like the wrong person to ask
Mm.
because the only used Polaroid camera I bought was the Warhol camera, like this one.
Oh, that's when
And
I seen that on your Instagram.
yeah. So this one, it's just super long and plasticky. It's such a toy that I told myself I will never pay $200 for that toy. That's an expensive toy. So I just waited for something that's like $60, and I found something and just said not tested. I heard that they tend to break, but as long I just felt like the engineering of it's gonna work. So yeah, I just took a risk and it works. But I would always trust the seller. Just always look for any eBay. I'll just always look at the seller rating and the reviews, and that's probably the best way. Um, but if you're gonna buy it hands-on, like on Facebook Marketplace, you're gonna meet up, then I think testing it is the better option. But yeah, everything is a risk.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then like my studio Polaroid camera is professionally refurbished by like Mint Camera. I
Mm-hmm.
think they're in China, so it's always gonna work. So I
Mm.
had full confidence. Although it was a premium price, I knew the stuff that I
Worth it.
do, it's a good investment. And then what's the other camera? Actually, I lied. I bought another. I did buy another camera on eBay, but yeah, it's just a risk. You just gotta say, hey, if it works, it works. If it doesn't, it doesn't. That's unfortunately
Yeah.
that's the world we live in when it comes to Polaroid. Hmm. And I
Yeah.
think it's called the for anyone who's interested, it's called the Land 180, which is a manual camera for
Mm-hmm.
Polaroid that was like made in the 70s and 80s.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why like the only cameras I buy is all the manual cameras that can do manual Polaroid,
Mm-hmm.
except for this one, the Warhol one, because um, a lot of people like Warhol made art out of this, so people use his techniques. A lot of great Polaroid photographers, like someone that got me into this camera was Brian Sokolis on Instagram, and he just opened my world to that camera. I told myself I'll never shoot with that because it's not a manual camera. It's just point and shoot. But he taught me how, and now I'm addicted. So,
Mm.
but luckily, there's a lot of cameras like these, and you could get it for pretty cheap or pretty expensive. So it's just how much you want to pay, how much you want to risk, and that's my story of like eBay Polaroid cameras.
Yeah, but it's a the your answer is why I'm scared, right? Because like, oh, well,
Yeah.
at some point, if you, I mean, obviously you get paid, you pay for it, but if you want to
Mhm.
gamble, then you're gonna gamble. Like, I don't want to spend the money. I don't think I have the money for that right now. I'll go buy
Well,
something
you live
else.
in San Diego. You could feel free to like demo anything, and it's a matter of like, look, I told myself I'll never shoot with this camera,
Mm-hmm.
but Brian Sokolis like let me. I took his workshop and so he's demoing everything, and I told
Mm-hmm.
myself I'll never buy like peel apart film and any camera like that. As soon as I touched it, I knew I
Just
loved
like
it.
feel the magic. Yeah.
You trust me, your mentality is gonna change as soon as you know you want
Mm-hmm.
it.
Yeah. No, I get that. That's where I'm at right now with it's kind of like I say like a multiple podcast. It'll happen at some point, but it's like I use Nikon, um, but everyone I like uses Canon for the most part.
Mhm. Mhm.
Um, but particularly the 5D Mark IV or 5D Mark III. And the other day, I think I just touched a Canon mirrorless. And I was like, oh, there's a magic to this. But when I shot, I
Yeah.
didn't like how it felt. But it's like you said, sometimes it's just like that yeah, sensation. You just touch it, and you could tell, like, oh,
Mhm.
forget what I
Mhm.
said last time. I like it now.
Yeah.
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 Um, kind of a hard left. One thing I was really curious about is like your process, how you approach this is on your page. You have not just your pictures, but you have some where it's like the Polaroid, and then it's like graphics all around it. So it's like text or newspapers or
Yeah,
tape.
yeah,
Is
yeah,
is that is that like Photoshop? Are you actually like
yeah.
crafting that?
The fusion, let's just say that, like some of it, I'll actually use real tape. So if anyone hasn't seen my Instagram, I like to scrapbook my my aesthetic of my profile feed.
Mhm,
And so yeah, some of it is just mainly textures, Photoshop textures, and stock images, and I would say 90% of it is Photoshop stock images,
mhm,
and then sometimes I'll actually make a scrapbook, and that all derive from like I found a photographer called Ben Watts, and he does a lot of scrapbooking in the '90s, and I was like, I love how authentic it looked because he made something so tacky and cheap look so amazing,
mm,
beautiful. And I felt like I connect with that so much because I don't feel like I'm the best at like anything. I feel I sometimes I just want to get the job done. And I related to his style so much because he wasn't super glamorous with his when he does like street photography. Sometimes it's just super simple. He'll just take a camera and out in the streets, and it's just how you capture
mhm,
culture and the urban life, and I could see grit and grime, but he did scrapbooking and the way he
mm,
presented it, and how I just connected with so much. I was like, you know what, I'm going to use that. And the second reason why I did that, because I like to um, shrink down my actual photos so you don't get the full picture on your feed. It's sized down.
oh,
I size it down, and then I'll have like border a crazy scrapbook border, and I force people to just not get the full experience of my photo, because I think the last place you would want to see any of your work is on Instagram. It should be on in person, live, print, gallery, whatever. It shouldn't be on Instagram. So I want to give a reduced down version of my work, but
mm,
still kind of cool looking, and let them be excited to experience something different when they see it potentially in a gallery. So I always give the example of like, hey, does the Mona Lisa look better on screen or in person? Because you're gonna see all the brush strokes of Leonardo da Vinci, and you're gonna see some of the hard labor that he put in, and and it's just a different experience in person. And it's another reason why I shoot Polaroid, because when you feel it, it's in your hands is different. You're you're looking at a photo in a different way than on a phone. So I force people to have a reduced down version of my work. So when they see it in person, they'll see more of the grandeur of my photo of my work.
mhm. Yeah. Yeah, because I was interesting. Because like when I shoot with DSLR, like it's a long format, right? But Instagram
Mhm.
4x5, so I have to crop it down. I don't like cropping,
Yeah.
so then I would do the full image and then like content fill, draw in like
Mhm.
the blank space to make it a 4x5.
Yeah.
But then I feel like it
Yeah.
would too much. Like it was like sometimes it's cool, but sometimes it's just like empty space, and I don't. But in a way
Yeah.
where it stretches, and I don't like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
So I started just sizing it down to fit the whole image, and I was like white space.
Yeah.
But then I feel like, oh, but now I'm shrinking the image on Instagram. Yeah,
Mhm.
that's just cool to hear how you're doing it. It's like I never. That's why I tweet about the podcast. Like I want to learn from other artists how they might
Mhm.
approach it or see things differently.
Yeah, it's all intentional. All the stuff that I do, Like there's an explanation for it. It's definitely not for the looks. Yeah, that's a big part of it, you know, the aesthetic. But I I come from a dance background, right?
Hmm.
Uh, so I did a lot of choreography, dance, hip hop. Um, I've seen a lot of tutorials. I've seen a lot of great choreography on the screen on YouTube. But when I take a dance class and actually see the choreographer perform and you can see the facial expressions, it's a different experience when it's in person. So I use that mentality in my you know, the medium of how you want to show your work. It's
Hmm.
definitely better in person, and that's the emotional connection that I lean into with my work.
What are 'cause on your page you've done a lot of stuff. Are there any like shoots you haven't done yet that you've been like wanting to do and just haven't got around to, or like you're waiting for things to fall into place to do it?
Yeah, stuff that I haven't done. You're asking?
That you haven't done yet.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I haven't tapped into some of my more experimental stuff that I don't show on my Instagram. And I have yet to do more shoots of my experimental stuff just because I want to build more of my portfolio.
Hmm.
And so I haven't done my experimental stuff when I involves a lot of slow shutter, involves a lot of color, it involves uh, LED lights, and it involves strobes, and it should be a trip. And I'm still trying to work on the look, but for anyone out there, if you've seen the movie Soul from Pixar, and they talk about a place called the Zone, and it looks very neon green and blue. It almost looked like the Aurora Borealis in a way. And I connected, and what the zone is where like between living and dying, there's a place in the zone for creatives like us, artists, and they're in while they're creating, they're in this space, this subconscious space where they're they're making art and nothing is bothering them and they're just creating beautiful things. And they call that the zone. And I just connected with that so much. I wanted to create like still images of the zone. So I'm working on that type of experiment. I've done a few photo shoots like that, but
Hmm.
I'm waiting to. It might take years, but yeah, I don't show it on Instagram. But until I have like a good gallery worth of that, that's when it's going to be presented.
For sure.
Mm-hmm.
That's cool. But I haven't seen the movie yet, but I know what you're talking about.
With
Yeah,
Jamie
I guess.
Foxx.
Yeah, I haven't the Pixar movie. It's recent. That's like, well, not recent, but like
Yeah, yeah,
2, 3 years ago.
yeah, yeah. So any artists out there, I think it's obviously it's about uh, the afterlife, but there's a sub layer of subplot about creativity and artists, and I think that any creative should watch that movie.
Hmm. For sure. You gave me something. Well, I don't have Disney Plus anymore, but yeah.
Uh-huh.
If you have
Recommend
Disney
it for
Plus.
any artist.
Yeah. Oh, for sure, man. I know I told you like 30 minutes. I went way over, but I do have to wrap it
Okay.
up. But hey man, you've been doing this for a while now. You clearly know your stuff.
Mhm.
What's some advice you could give to someone that's getting started with photography, but I guess in this case more Polaroid photography?
Um, I have so much advice to give.
Hmm.
But and it's true when people say you got to keep shooting, you know, don't ever stop. Um, but what does that really mean? And I think um, there's a quote from some photographer: your first 1,000 photos is like your worst, and then you start creating more amazing work.
Hmm.
Never- I always related to that, but I never fully understood it until I realized it means failing. You got to
Mm,
keep failing. So I've gone through so much of that, not just in Polaroid, but photography and in life, that when something goes wrong, or you just have to learn from it. And if I got to tell somebody, yeah, keep shooting, but what I really mean is like keep failing, and fail hard.
mm-hmm,
Don't let that stop you,
mm-hmm,
and learn from those mistakes, because that's why I got better at learning the foundations of photography, is understanding when I shoot film, how why does it look this way? Oh, this is out of focus. And I force myself to not mess that up and really be present. And then when I get something that's like overexposed, then I understand exposure, or Sunny 16, when that rule. And when I feel like something was too dark, well, I had to figure out how to do it. And then suddenly that failure becomes really internal to me. And I don't have to reference any type of tutorial, any type of any type of I don't know, message in a book.
mm.
I don't have to refer to that. I don't,
It's like
when
an
I fail,
internal scar
so
tissue.
yeah, it becomes, when it becomes internal, you're just gonna act more natural to how you want to push forward. And so that's my
Mm.
advice to my younger self, is like when you fail in photography, you got to learn from it. Don't let that stop you.
Yeah, that's cool, man. I appreciate that. That I think that was a good way you framed it. That it becomes so internal that it becomes like net like
Hmm.
'cause there's times where I felt like I'm doing and not just photography, it's just life now, right? You're doing
Hmm.
things because you know that's supposed to do, and so you kind of have like this rule book in your head,
Hmm.
but maybe you don't really know, but you're just doing what you're told. But then versus like
Yeah,
I've already gone through this maybe like 4 times, and I've already learned the hard way.
yeah,
So there's not even a second guessing myself just because I already know, right? And there's like it's a different level of confidence. You're not like BS. You're not trying. It's just like, no,
yes,
I
it builds.
know. You're
Yeah,
convicted by it. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. That's cool, man. That's a good way to end
I
the
could go
podcast.
on and on life lessons, as far as photography and advice, and even for failure. Like that's just a spiritual experience for me,
Yeah.
that I can talk about for hours. I have a bunch of that's why, like, a lot of my photos really utilizes a lot of shadows. Because for basic strobe photography, you have your key light, but then on the other side, it'll produce a shadow, and you can either fill it up or keep it there, or have that ratio of to be like maybe half of the key light. But sometimes I embrace that harshness, because that deep contrast. And if you look at life, if your life has contrast, if you start from like 5 years ago, when I felt like I wasn't really good as a photographer, and then suddenly
Mhm.
today I'm a whole completely different photographer, and I love that growth process. There's a huge contrast from where I started and where I'm at now. And if
Mhm.
you are the same person from where you started and where you're at right now, then you didn't grow. There's no contrast. So there's a
Mhm.
lot of contrast
Mm.
in my photos, because there's this subconscious emotion that is emoted when it comes to contrast ratios. Like, and that's basically the zone theory of Ansel Adams, where this is true highlights, this is true midtones, and true blacks.
Mhm.
If it's all midtones, then it's flat, and then it just doesn't feel um, like there's shape and dimension. But if there's something that's on very high to very black, and there's a gradient um, to the shadows, you're gonna see something more dramatic, and that's basically contrast. And to me, in life, that's why I embrace that style of using contrast and never flat. So that's why I don't really do weddings, because that's a lot of flat photography, in my opinion. So if
Yeah.
there's anyone out there, and I'll do a wedding, but you gotta let me do it my style like that. And usually it will probably be some some type of Kardashian or something, because that's like the only probably the only people who actually embrace like fashion editorial type weddings. You know,
Hmm.
I'll do it if you do it like my style.
Yeah.
But yeah, again, I could go on and on like you can pick any type of foundational photography, like if it's going to be like Sunny 16, if it's going to be contrast, light shaping, because there's Rembrandt light, split light, like pick anything. I could always relate it to life, and that's the part of the internalness that I can just go on and on and on and on and on forever. Like
Hmm.
I can make my own book of advice on all of that because I relate to life because it's so internal to me, and that's why I'm freestyling dancing. I'm when I dance, it's the music that dictates my movement.
Yeah.
But when I do photography, I'll let the environment dictate how I'm going to shoot. The
Hmm.
environment's going to tell me. The light's going to tell me, and that's the freedom that I get in how I shoot
Hmm.
because it's so internal already.
Yeah.
It's in the bag. I practice it so much, and I fail so much. It's all internal that I can only react to what's in front of me.
Hmm.
Damn,
For
that's
sure,
why I love
man.
photography. That's why I love it.
Yeah, pulled all that out. Yeah, you got my sound bites. For sure, man. It was great
Yeah,
talking to you. I
yeah,
appreciate you just being full artists, right? And just putting it out there and like really bringing us into like, yeah, it's like you as a person now versus like you as an artist, right? There's
mhm,
clearly a deeper sub layer to
mhm.
that.
Yeah, exactly. That's the perfect word.
Mm, for
There's
sure, man.
depth. That's another keyword in photography, depth. How do you do that? But that's another day, bro. We gotta
Another
connect.
episode.
Yeah,
Yeah,
we gotta connect again.
yeah, man. This
And
was fun
yeah.
for sure. Well, let me just go and wrap it up. So for
Yeah.
everyone listening, thanks for joining today. Freeze, where can people follow you and see your work at?
Just IG, um, which is Mstah dot freeze, but I spell it Mstah dot Freeze. And then that's it. I do have a website, but I don't promote it. Um, but I want to launch it when it's ready. So I'm not going to
Okay.
promote my website right now. If I was gonna have a website, I want to have a launch party. So
Mhm.
there is no website. So just IG, Mstah Freeze. That's my uh, photography account.
For sure. Cool, man.
Mhm.
Well, hey, thanks for joining me today, and thank you for everyone that listened. I'm gonna go and stop recording, and I'll see y'all later. Bye.
All right.